Right, so you're here this morning. Often we have a chat and a laugh and a giggle, and it's really weird, isn't it? You're part of the Good Morning Portugal community for months, and we haven't really talked in any depth about your home, have we, and what you're doing? And
No.
I think the timing's right, isn't it? Because I don't know if you'd agree with this, but there's been a turbulence created with this sequence of events over the last couple of months. First the golden visa, the NHR thing, and then 10% on alcohol. With the cruelest blow, 10% taxation on alcohol recently announced. And I think yours is a calming voice. You tend to cut through the chaos and the fog with some very practical solutions, which you've been offering to people moving to Portugal for how many years now?
11 years.
Wow. Okay.
11 years. 11 years I've been dealing with the international community that was looking either to invest or to move to Portugal. So I've been doing it a long time. I've done it from every part of the world, from China, from Hong Kong to Singapore, Malaysia, the Middle East, from the States, from South Africa. Basically, anyone who's here probably met me along the way that came from wherever they came from, because I was probably one of the first people to do presentations abroad with regards to the golden visa. I started it back in 2014. It had just started in 2012. Hadn't really kicked off really till 2014, and I'd say I was probably one of the first, if not the first, doing the presentations in the Middle East. I had an office in Hong Kong, an office in Dubai, and an office in South Africa, where we were basically dealing on the ground with people that were looking at Portugal, and solely Portugal, with regards to investing and getting residency via investing. So that's what we were concentrating on. We had done it for many, many years. We pulled back from it a little bit later when it started to get a little bit messy with regards to how you could qualify for the golden visa at the time. And what was happening was there was companies that were in the golden visa space had started to sort of make product that was a golden visa product. And it was more of a sort of, this is what you can do, just what qualified for your residency rather than as a good investment. And I didn't particularly like that space. I preferred where people were doing investments, and the residency was a result of the investment, and not the other way around, that you had to do this, because that wasn't investing, that was spending money. So I pulled back from those kind of offers at that time. And of course, now the golden visa has changed completely, as has the NHR. But I still have a lot of people that are looking to move to Portugal for lots and lots of reasons. And not just to move to Portugal, but obviously get a residency that gives them access into Schengen as well as Portugal as well. But the only way I'll do it is actually by true investment.
Well, that's interesting. You made a distinction there between investing and spending. And that's what I think has caused a lot of the panic. I mean, some people are actually panicking at the moment, aren't they, with this NHR announcement? And you can understand it on the one level, but that perhaps does come from the preoccupation that they're just thinking they're hemorrhaging money by being in Portugal. And you take, I don't know, is it a counterintuitive? But certainly you think outside the box and you bring a different view to this. This is still a great place to reframe and think of it as investing in the country rather than how you're going to come off the worst for spending in the country or settling here. Can we come back to that in a moment? Because I want to go back a little bit because of your 11 years of being here and seeing the scene change. I mean, the real sort of explosion of interest seemed to me to happen maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and the pandemic was quite helpful, wasn't it? Because certainly a lot of American people were re-evaluating their lives and their plans, and they had a chance to stop and discover this wonderful place, as we saw in your earlier video of Portugal. And they made their plans and they moved. And did you see that as a very significant spike in interest and movement to the country?
Yeah, but not just, well, I saw this, I think around the world, people decided that, I think it stopped people in their tracks to sort of go, am I happy where I am? Is there a better option, etc.? And that was local as well as international. So like even from the point of view of Lisbon, and as you know, I'm an expert in the Lisbon market more so, and the Lisbon area. But I saw a huge shift from people moving out of Lisbon into the sort of Herdade de Aroeira, the Mayos types areas, because of lifestyle opportunity. And I think international, I'd say, what's the word I'm looking for? They really thought they wanted the same thing, and they saw Portugal as that other option. As where we were looking at Portugal at the south, they were looking at Portugal as sort of the California of Europe, if you like. And I know the NHR it was just, as far as I'm concerned, the NHR was a bonus that people were getting when they came here, because it was, you got so much on top of that. You saw that little clip we played earlier on. That actually was, we made that. And it was trying to get across to people how the lifestyle is here in Portugal. And I think that's the main thing. And regardless whether the NHR is here or whether Golden Visa is here, if you get to move to Portugal or if you get to stay in Portugal, you'll see yourself that there's a lot more to it than just trying to save a couple of quid on tax.
Well said, yeah. And Doug's adding to that. Portugal was bound to eventually stop the NHR. I mean, that's something that's been forgotten in the current conversation, isn't it? It was only ever a 10-year program, and it was a stimulant, wasn't it? Early on, it was never going to be a long-term regime, and it ended for everyone at some point anyway, didn't it?
Yeah, a lot of these programs were brought in to do a job, and as it's been stated, the job had been achieved, if you like. Now, I do believe they still need to do other programs that will help alleviate the situation that the government find themselves in anyway. And you know my debate there. I think the NHR had done great things for Portugal because it brought a lot of wealth into the country that otherwise wouldn't have been here. I know a lot of people say, well, they didn't have to pay a tax. My argument is you're paying IVA, you're paying 23% tax on everything you spend, as is everybody else. But that tax wouldn't have been spent here had it not been attracted by the NHR in the first place.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's gone or gone, I don't think it should make any difference, really, to be honest with you, to the people who are looking to move to Portugal, because typically that's not the primary reason to move to Portugal. If you're moving to Portugal because you just don't have to pay as much tax, I don't think it's the right reason. I don't believe any of my clients in the 11 years that I've been bringing people to Portugal have actually, come because of the NHR. Some of them, and not too many of them, would have taken it up, because a lot of my clients as well wouldn't have actually moved. They would have done their golden visa, got their residency, and applied for citizenship. And that was their main goal originally. But then a lot of people then decided, yeah, I like Portugal, and they've made their retirement plans to come to Portugal and so on. But none of them asked me about the NHR at the time. They didn't even know it existed.
That's incredible, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is that for me, it's a non-issue. It's a non-fact in what we do.
Yeah. And so perhaps causing unnecessary concern for people. I suppose the most difficult situation is when someone has made it part of their personal business plan and they live a somewhat sort of marginal existence based on a pension, and that could really affect things for them. But again, we would urge people to take a calm look at the numbers and make the necessary adjustments. Incidentally, time for Mrs. Girardinot and I to apply for the NHR. Any recommendations? Was thinking of doing it online. Mr. S says yes, you can do it online, but the deadline, and this was part of the problem, of course, Bobby, wasn't it? It was the political part of it. The Prime Minister announced the end of it on a late night news program, didn't he? That doesn't help. It was very similar with the the positioning or the announcement about the golden visa. What did he do? He said it on stage at Web Summit or something. These things, they don't help. They cause an unnecessary dent to confidence and don't show off Portugal in the best possible light internationally. So yes, of course, these things have to change, but maybe a little bit of work could be done on exactly how they might be handled. And I know you've got views on politics and how things are managed here in Portugal. We might return to that this morning, but I want to know specifically more about your common sense program and approach to bringing people to Portugal and cutting through the chaos as many are seeing it. So what have you got? What's the plan as you see it? I mean, you've seen this 11-year span and context. You've got that experience. You're seeing people come and go, and as you say, many people know you from talking to you years ago about coming to Portugal, and you've seen the explosion of interest in Portugal more recently because of the pandemic, and you've seen a lot of people come into the marketplace who are offering these services of moving people to Portugal as well. It must be very interesting and entertaining to you to see how they approach this. And I know that you have you often think outside the box. You're a lateral thinker, and based on all that experience, what have you got for people that does cut through this chaos and can bring confidence back to moving to Portugal and enjoy all that we love about being here?
Information. Basically, facts, simple facts, and then basically options.
Right.
So probably right now the most, I suppose, attractive way to gain a residency for people that's looking at Portugal for a residency, whether it's be a temporary residency or actually to live here, either be the D2 or the D7. And of course, a lot of our American audience know about it already. And a lot of people have already started to use these options to move to Portugal and to gain residency. The one thing that I want to get across is that you have to be very, very careful when it comes to these things. I was with one of the legal teams that we use, and she was telling me she was in a case where 50 people had applied for the D2 through one company, and the authorities shut it down and basically stopped any of those people applying for any form of residency because they saw it as a sort of a scam or a get around to do this. So
hold on a minute. So they've basically been banned from Portugal for trying that route, which presumably they probably did it in good faith on the advice of a legal team here, right?
Yeah, it was probably done on the fact that it was done where they'd started a company. Some of them were employed, some of them were D2 investors put into it, but it was all on a very low level investment model, if you like.
Yeah.
Because when you go through the criteria that you need, people, it's interpretive. So people will interpret it as they see it. But now the actual authorities are getting very active with regards to what's real and what's not real. So it needs to be real. So someone comes along and says to you, we've got this program and you have to do this, this, and this, and it's only costing you that, etc. And, you know, that ticks all the boxes. That's not the end of it. If the authorities think this is not real, in other words, that you're doing the residency, you're doing the small investment rather to get the residency rather than to actually have something that's a real company that's making a profit, or even that's a real business, and it's actually done with how would you say a minimum amount of investment. And I would say the minimum amount of investment that we're hearing is what's really required is between 250 to 300,000 and up. Anything under that, the authorities are going to look at. And you've got a long way to get to where you're going to have your passport, and you have to deal with CEF and wherever is going to replace CEF. And then you also have to deal with exactly keeping this business going for that period of time. Now, a lot of people who are doing this don't want to be here or can't be here, but want to have the residency and so on. So what we supply is a sort of, as you used to say, a soup to nuts side solution.
Yeah, that's not actually mine, but it's something I learned recently. Soup to nuts is like A to Z, and it's a catering reference. But yeah, you've got it all covered, basically.
Yeah, basically what from start to finish, because it's not that it's a bit complex, and when you're dealing with the authorities here, the bureaucracy here, you have to be patient. That's the one thing I'm going to tell everybody when it's doing this. Nothing happens here overnight or over a couple of months. So
sometimes a year or more. Yeah.
I would say you have to be patient. That's the first thing. Patience is going to be required here, and you will get annoyed and you will get upset about things, but that's what we want to do. We want to take that all away. We start them off with, okay, I've decided I want to do this. We give them the information. I want to do this D2, and we take over from there. We send them all the information that they need. They compile all the documents. We write up their business plan or their portfolio investment opportunities or whatever they might do that they can submit then within the embassy, where they can actually have to get the D2 visa stamped onto their passport. Then they have to come to Portugal, etc. There's a lot step by step. But there's a lot involved in it. And not only that, they need to have the right type of asset that gives the right type of return. They need to have an address in Portugal and so on. So what we've done is we've put together a lot of options that sort of shortens the time period because we can help them with getting their NIF number, of course, with their bank accounts, setting up the companies, setting up everything that they need with regards to even the documentation to get them all apostolized and all these kind of things. So there's a lot of admin in there. So we have the team that can take care of everything from A to Z. And basically what they have to do is look at the option and decide what kind of investment works for them and what they're comfortable with. And I suppose the one thing that we have probably more than anybody else is that, well, not anyone else, but what we offer is that we're a constant. We've been here for a long time. We've been doing it for a long time, and people know what they're getting when it comes to us.
Yeah, very interesting. So some people will have heard of the golden visa. They'll have heard of the D7, aka the passive income approach. Not so much the D2, right? So tell us a little
Yeah.
bit more about it. It's not a new thing, is it?
Well, actually, it's not a new thing. It was out even before the golden visa. It's always been around, and it's an entrepreneurial visa. So basically, the idea is that if you want to create a business in Portugal, or if you want to do an investment in Portugal, create jobs in Portugal, there's a couple of different criteria which it comes under, and there, how do you say, it's left a couple of loopholes that people might sort of try and take advantage of. But I'm telling you now, don't take advantage of loopholes, because what will happen is they'll end up closing loopholes, and when you go to do your renewal, you're going to have problems.
Yeah.
So the thing is that you need to do it right. So get the right advice, get the right people, whoever it might be, get the right research who you're going to use, and basically make sure that your investment is real.
Yeah.
Because it can be, it's your life you're playing with, really, and your future and your
your
family.
future, absolutely.
So,
And sorry, go on.
no, go ahead.
Right. Again, going back to this distinction between cost and investment, this is
Yeah.
where the conversation seems to have gone, doesn't it? At the moment, it's going to cost me too much to move to Portugal. That's people's thought, isn't it? The NHR is going, so it's going to cost me more to be there. My cost of living is going to go up, and it's not worth it. And interestingly, I think a lot of people, you talked about people before who may have moved here for a beneficial tax regime. Those people weren't going to stay, were they? They were going to go to the next country that offered them a beneficial tax regime after this one, potentially.
I would think they would have. I would like to think that they would stay. But like, as I said to you, if that's your reason for moving, I don't think you should move, really.
Yeah,
Because all things depend on you have a budget every year, and a budget is open to change. Tax is open to change. Situations are open to change every year.
Yeah.
Now, I know the NHR sort of gave a 10-year sort of basis or sort of certainty with regards to what you did when you came into the program.
Yeah.
But as I said to you, like, I know that it's been a very successful program, mainly for Europeans, and from the French, I think, was probably the biggest ones that picked it up. But it's not the main reason people want to move to Portugal. And it's when people move here, and like if they came for the NHR and they've embedded themselves into the community here and so on and so forth, I don't think they're going to,
True.
off stick and go
quite
again.
a wrench. It's going to be quite a wrench, isn't it, for those people?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So the cost versus investment, I think this is very interesting. So a lot of the current conversation and upset, panic is about, it's going to cost me more, and it's the immediate emotional reaction is it in some way makes Portugal look less attractive. What you're suggesting here, it sounds like, with a D2, is you're actually investing in a business. So can this package work to bring a return, not only get you the residency that you're looking for in Portugal as an alternative? It sounds like there might be a return on this investment.
That's all I've ever done. That's all
Right,
I've ever done, is actually do investment by residency, by investment, and real investment. And I can put my hand on my heart and say that everyone that we've dealt with has made money, and has made a yield. They've got massive capital growth because of what happened within the property market, thanks to the Portuguese government for not releasing the planning at speed, so the property prices kept going up. Out of my hands. But the thing is that everyone has made money. But Portugal offers so much opportunity when it comes to actually investing, and there are still fantastic investment opportunities here. And all people have to do is look at it and look at its record, look at its history, look where it's going, look how many people are looking to move to Portugal, etc., and so on. And then if you look at the shortage of everything the one thing that I noticed, Carl, when I mainly dealt with entrepreneurial people that had set themselves up in other countries around, very wealthy people. But the one thing that everybody seemed to notice here was the opportunities.
Yeah.
The opportunities to do whatever business they were doing at home in their own country. Wow, why don't they do that here? Why don't they have that here? And they would actually start doing certain businesses like they were doing. So they become a sort of another arm of what they were doing back in their own country. That kind of. So they set up a business as well. So there's lots of different ways to do the D2. What I would say is to people is that they need to see what fits them. But I also say that people that are looking at 100,000 to 200,000, they probably have to think twice, to be honest. And the D7 is probably the way that they should go. Come here and rent and so on and so forth, with their retirement plan, if that's the way they want to go. But for who really wants to do the D2, you need to be looking at, I would say, minimum 300,000, as in everything, putting in all your investment, your cost, your taxes, and so on. If it's under that, it can be done, but it's a little bit more softer.
Probably that's not a high bar, is it? 300,000. I mean, there are people on D7s who are buying, 300, 400, 500,000 pound homes, and
Yes.
they could reframe it in their mind and for their future, couldn't they? Instead of just like, you're not losing 500,000 by putting it into a home, but it's a very different proposition to considering that as an investment and using that 500,000 to put into a project that's going to yield for you, rather than just be a home and the asset you live in, which of course doesn't yield anything at all.
Yeah, the thing is that the D2 needs to have a business side to it. Like for example, you can buy a property. You could buy a couple of apartments and rent them out, get a yield off of those. But you also have to have an address. You have to have a local address in Portugal for this to work. The other thing is that it's probably more designed for people who are not ready to move to Portugal, who actually want to get the residency and achieve citizenship later on. That's more or less who would probably do this, because it allows them to not have to live in Portugal. This is the big deal here. Yeah. You don't have to live in Portugal. Even someone says that you have to live in Portugal, but there is a caveat that says that if, for example, you can't be here all the time, you can't be away from Portugal at a given 8-month period. So basically you have to come probably every 6-7 months, but there's no minimum stay. So for people who want to get a residency, who want to achieve citizenship, and who are in a position to make an investment, and not every investment is a sure thing. You have to, obviously, all investments come at risk, but that depends on the person's attitude towards risk and what to choose. But they're the type of people that should be doing the D2. The D7 is for someone who wants to move to Portugal, who wants to live here and has a passive income from outside of Portugal, and it's much easier to come and live. Exactly. So, but the D2 is another route where people are just not ready to move yet, but want to start the process of getting another residency.
But you could move here if you wanted to.
Yes,
actually, you could if you wanted to.
They want you to be here. They want you to be here, and they want you to run a business here and to make money and to pay taxes, etc. as well. So absolutely, you can. And as I said, we've got people that are doing millions plus as investments on D2, not because they want the residency, because they want the investment, but they're getting their D2 alongside that. Yeah, that's the part I'm trying to say. The residency should be, how do you say, the secondary part of it.
Yes.
The first part of it you should think of is the investment side of it. Take care of all of the paperwork that needs to be taken care of, which we do, and then basically do the investment. And the residency should be something that comes along with it, rather than going for residency and what do I need to do.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, this could be interesting because you don't know what you don't know. People who think about moving to Portugal have tended to be funneled into the D7 process, haven't they? You start looking at moving to Portugal, and you tend to be. I mean, this is the way business models work, isn't it? Is people tend to get you to do the thing they offer. So the conversation about moving to Portugal has been dominated by either the D7 or the golden visa. This is for the wealthier migrants, of course, because there's a lot of people moving to Portugal who are on the workers visa. That's a different demographic to the one we normally talk about and deal with. But within our demographic, it's often been the D7. So it might come as news to people, mightn't it, that they could even come to Portugal, investing in a business, making an investment, and it also kind of gets rid of this this sense that the property visas are over. This could be an investment in a different kind of business. It doesn't have to be property in the way that the golden visa has been, and it wasn't, was it? The golden visa wasn't only about property, but these are the perceptions people come to, aren't they? Because of the way that these processes are presented to people.
Yeah, exactly. So people go on the internet and they sort of, Google residency programs, and up comes lots of golden visa stuff, and a lot of people are very good at SEO, SEA, marketing, Google, pay-per-click, etc. will put you in front of lawyers and real estate people, and people are selling what they're selling. That's what they're doing. What we've always done was investing. We deal with investors, but what I think is it helps people. When you move to Portugal, it's nice to have an income. It's nice to have a passive income from Portugal as well, you know?
Yeah.
So if you buy a couple of properties that are giving you a decent yield because you bought, then you're one up. So
Yes.
you have the residency and you have an income coming in. So that's what we're there to do. We're there to help those people to get through the sort of bureaucracy side of it, who don't know where to turn or don't know what to do or don't know who to believe. So the idea is to sit down, have a chat with them, go through step by step on a one-to-one basis and listen to what they have to say, what their needs are, and then advise them accordingly, how it would work for them, and give them options of what should work for them, and that they could sort of narrow it down to see what they want to do. A lot of people mightn't even know where they want to live yet, but they do know I want a residency. So they might say, look, I want to invest in something, but I want to check where I want to live. But in the meantime, they can get their program started.
Excellent. And it is, I think it will come as news. That's why I'm so excited about talking about it and sharing it, because it will come as news to some people that this is possible at all. Whilst the general direction of travel within the sort of migration news industry of Portugal seems to be, oh no, the golden visa's over, NHR's over, what next? It's becoming difficult. This is suddenly another door opening up, isn't it? But people don't know about it until you're saying more about it this morning.
This is probably the biggest eye-opener. It's always been around.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just, it wasn't as attractive, I suppose, for the people in the business of selling golden visas at the time. I didn't even know it was around until very, very recently, until the golden visa disappeared. But what sort of got me was, I had a chat with a lawyer, so when did they bring in this? And he goes, no, it's always been here. It's just that...
Even you.
So I didn't even know it, and I was in that space. You know what I mean? So it's been there. It's been tried and proven, and it's working. The only thing is, and my advice is, it needs to be real. So when you see somebody online coming up with this scheme, invest 50,000 in here, and it ticks all the boxes for your D2, run.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
Don't touch it.
Yeah.
Because you'll end up losing your money, number one. That's the first thing. You'll end up paying crazy fees, number two. And number three, it might even, how do you say, get through the process of ticking the boxes, but it won't get very far.
We do hear about this, and often it's that old saying, isn't it? If it sounds like it's too good to be true, it probably is.
It is.
Okay. I want to spin. I'm enjoying and again, it's like, how has it taken so long for us to talk about this? And for me to see these promotional videos of yours. Here's another one you brought to my attention yesterday. I'm hoping the animations in this one. Let's have another look at this one, and then it'd be great to talk to you more personally about you and your life in Portugal. If anyone's got any questions for you personally, I want to come back to what you said about you've got to be patient. I want to find out if you're naturally a patient person and what Portugal has done to you. We'll find out the answer to that when we talk some more to you after this little video.
The more you visit this place, the more you'll get amazed by it. Here you'll find many opportunities to invest and find out that Portugal offers, well, one of the best qualities of life and one of the most attractive residency by investment programs in the world. So I can happily recommend you UrHome Portugal. They're probably the best consultants in the business. They can take care of you through the process from the start to the finish. Finding the perfect investment that suits you, down to the legal documentation required, and the process is relatively straightforward. By entering this residency program, it can lead to Portuguese citizenship for me and for my family. And as soon as we receive our residency cards, we have access to Europe inside the Schengen area and to everything that offers. So that means we get a great home, a safe place, top education, top healthcare, and of course, amazing food. By choosing Portugal, I'm investing in me, my family, our future, and a great quality of life.
A nice reference to Venice in there. Or was that Aveiro? I'm never sure. They're so similar, aren't they?
Yeah, we were trying to get across, I suppose, that once you're in the residency of Portugal, you have free travel through the whole Schengen space. So you don't just get Portugal; you get the whole Schengen area. And as people probably have discovered, especially rather east rather than west, is that getting Schengen visas now are after becoming very, very difficult, and they're getting more difficult and more difficult as we go. Yeah. And if you look what's happening in the world, all over the world right now, there is a populist move of people that are trying to put themselves into a position where they're looking for security. I think actually that's the first thing that Portugal has to offer. That's the most attractive thing right now, is security from a personal, family, wealth point of view.
There's a lot to be said for that right now, isn't there?
That's the first thing. Then the second thing is the lifestyle. Lifestyle is the second part of it, and basically an opportunity for their families as they go forward. So once you've achieved, say, the Portuguese citizenship, you have European citizenship, which opens up a lot more doors as you go across. So this is the first step, not just for them, but for their family and actually I would say most of the people who did the golden visa with me didn't do it for themselves. Did it for their family, for their kids to have the opportunity to go to school even in the States or in Europe. The fact that they had a European passport made it a lot different, made it a lot easier to apply to places where if they had a weaker passport. I'd say one of my biggest client bases was probably Indians that didn't live in India. So that was from Singapore, bankers and so on and so forth, from Dubai, Abu Dhabi, that kind of space, where basically the Indian passport was a very weak passport from allowing they needed visas to go absolutely everywhere. So they were probably the biggest people that took up golden visas with me, and it was because it was networked. So it worked very well for one family, so they start networking onto the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And so just by accident, we got a lot of Indian clients from that kind of reason. But as I said, one thing I did discover was how important your passport is. We take it for granted in Europe, especially how easy and how privileged we are to have a European passport.
Yeah, right.
You go to the countries that I've been to and you've seen what they have to do, and I would be doing presentations, and I would have, unfortunately, people there that weren't in a position to do a golden visa, because at that time the investment amount was this. They didn't have any money, basically, but the desperation that they had to get out of where they were, and they would come to our shows or come to our, please, sir, can you get me a job, and so on and so forth. It was heart-wrenching, to be straight.
Yeah, sure. Well, knowing you as I do, I imagine you found that very difficult.
Yeah, it was very difficult. But the thing is that you still had a job to do as well. And what we tried to do was point them in another direction that could help people that were in that situation with regards to employment and so on and so forth. But it's not our business model. And that's, how would you say, we had to stick to what we were doing. But right now, I believe that the D2 offers up a massive opportunity for people that offers Portugal. Like the one thing that I was told, I sell Portugal better than the Portuguese, and I think it's because I love it so much.
That. Yeah, no, but that's clear and understandable, because I think Portuguese people, there's no disrespect to Portuguese people, but it's the water they already swim in.
Yeah,
it's like they don't know how great it is, do they? And that's me as well. I'd like to think that every morning I'm celebrating the wonder of life here in Portugal and the lifestyle we have. It's politics is one thing, isn't it? And the machinery of migration is one thing, but that's like the 20%, 10%, 5% of what we're dealing with here. What Good Morning Portugal is about, and what I think you and I are kind of united on and share a passion for, is the culture. Beyond the politics and the administration and bureaucracy, it's the culture we love, isn't it? And Portuguese people who've grown up with that. We were with Pedro, weren't we, in Tamar? And I'm saying to him, have you been here before? He's a Portuguese lad. And he's like, no, I haven't been here before. Isn't it amazing? And he's looking around like, yeah, it's nice. But and it's like nice. This, there's a castle and there's a church and everything. And our Portuguese friends have just grown up with this, haven't they? And it's not as amazing to them, understandably, because of that, as it is for us coming into it.
Yeah, and I think we all probably have a bit of it in us from where we're from as well.
Yeah,
we have
exactly.
with your own hometown or whatever it might be. That's a Bruce Springsteen quote, not mine. But the thing is that I suppose, I suppose I appreciate it more because I see so much devastation in other countries, and so much how to say torment of people that can't move or don't have this option. So every time I come back to Portugal from especially the Middle East, and I get off the plane, or even Brazil, to be honest with you, Brazil as well can be beautiful. Don't get me wrong, absolutely love Brazil. But like I saw some horrible things happen in Brazil as well. You know what I mean? So when you get off the plane here and you have built-in air conditioning, as I do say, you know what I mean? You have to understand what it's like in these countries when you get out of the plane. It just, your shirt sticks to you straight away with sweat. You know what I mean? And there's the humidity and the heat and so on and so forth. And we don't know how good we have it here. Really don't.
I agree.
And if you take that NHR didn't ever exist, or never will exist again, for me, it doesn't have any effect on why you should move to Portugal at all.
Right. Good. And that's why I'm here every morning, to remind myself and other people how lucky we are to be here in Portugal. Let's take a few comments and then come back to whether you're a patient person or not and what Portugal has done to you in that regard.